Good evening, Madam Mayor, councilmen, staff, and the public. My name is Sharon Thompson, and I will be reading from excerpts of the past newsletters and newspaper publications. An excerpt from the August 24, 2008 Vanguardian's newsletter, page 2, by Barry Allen, formerly known as Alan B. Silverman. I grew my security and investigative business to 1,000 employees. I applied for a detective license. I could enthrall you with the many stories of investigations. Suffice it to say, we were very successful. I settled in Orange County and got into the radio business as a talk show host. I was using my name, Alan Silverman, and callers had a hard time with it. A focus group helped me with the decision to take my first name, Alan, and my second name, Barry, and gave me the name Barry Allen. Another excerpt from the March 25, 1985 Farmington Observer newspaper, Farmington, Michigan. Headline: Police nab suspects in counterfeiting. Acting on a search and seizure warrant issued by the U.S. Magistrate Lynn Hu, Secret Service agents confiscated $335,000 in counterfeit $20 and $100 bills, plates, a press, and other suspicious printing materials. Authorities called the action a major counterfeiting ring in the Detroit area and said it followed a 7-month-long investigation by federal Secret Service agents. The pair, James W. Breen and Alan B. Silverman, were arrested at Breen's house following surveillance by Secret Service agents. Wayne Welch, special agent in charge, said the Secret Service was first alerted on October 19th. Since then, he said, counterfeit notes had been distributed in the Detroit area, and a couple phony notes had appeared in Los Angeles and Orlando, Florida. An excerpt from the March 23, 1985 Detroit Free Press, Detroit, Michigan. Headline: 2 men charged with counterfeiting. The owner, a print shop, and the co-owner of a security and detective agency were charged Friday with running a major Detroit area counterfeiting ring. James Breen, owner of QPS Print Shop, and Alan Silverman, who we know today as Barry Allen, co-owner of Security Services, were arrested early Friday, says Wayne Welch, a special agent in charge of the U.S. Secret Service office in Detroit. Secret Service agents seized $335,000 in counterfeit $20 and $100 bills. An undetermined amount of counterfeit Co-America bank cashier checks, phony government seals for authenticating birth certificates, a printing press, and various counterfeiting supplies. Bills allegedly produced on the offset printing press have turned up in Los Angeles and Orlando, Florida. Welch said about 15 offset printing plates were used for producing different family of notes. This is a pretty good-sized case, Welch said. So that the public can read these materials in their entirety as they were printed, I am making them a public record and will now hand them over to the city clerk. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Robert Thompson, to be followed by Bill Weisman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, staff, and the public. My name is Robert Thompson. For your information, I will continue to read excerpts from publications of the past. Excerpt, April 4th, 1985, Orlando Sentinel, Orlando, Florida. Headline: Fake bills might have come from a plant near Detroit. More than $7,000 worth of bogus bills mailed to about a dozen people in Orange and Seminole counties last January have been linked to a counterfeit manufacturing plant near Detroit that was raided last month by U.S. Secret Service agents. Agents determined this week that the counterfeit $100 bills, which were sent anonymously to Florida residents in plain brown envelopes with no return address, contained the same serial numbers as some of the bogus bills seized March 22nd at the plant in a Detroit suburb. When agents raided the plant, they seized about $335,000 worth of counterfeit $120 bills. They also confiscated a press used to make bogus bills, along with counterfeit cashier's checks, Social Security cards, and birth certificate forms, said Wayne Welch, special agent in charge of Detroit Secret Service office. Agents also arrested the owner of the plant, James William Breen of Livonia, and Alan B. Silverman, who we know today as Barry Allen, of Farmington Hills. Both were charged with possession of and passing of counterfeit currency. Both suspects have not said why they sent the bogus bills to Florida residents. The envelopes sent to the residents were postmarked in Inglewood, California. Welch said that the bogus bills had been passed at grocery stores, department stores, and at banks in the Detroit area. Excerpt, July 3, 1985, Orlando Sentinel. Headline: Bills in mail were counterfeiters' trick. Secret Service agents said Tuesday they have cleared up the case of the phony $100 bills sent Orlando area residents. Agents said the bills were mailed to shore up the defense of a man charged with passing counterfeit money. The man claimed he received the bills by mail. The bills were sent to throw up a smokescreen. Orlando Special Agent Dan Stebbins said the mystery mailing started after agents arrested Richard Wayne Gibson on charges of passing counterfeit notes in Orlando. The mail scheme unraveled after agents in Michigan closed a counterfeiting plant near Detroit, seizing more than $335,000 in phony money. The money bore the same plate numbers as the bills mailed to Orlando residents. Agents learned Gibson had received the counterfeit bills from the plant operators James William Breen and Alan B. Silverman. Both are awaiting sentencing after pleading guilty to charges stemming from the case. Gibbons took the bills on consignment, agreeing to split the genuine money received as change for the phony $100 bills. Gibson used to work for Silverman. After the arrest of Gibson, Silverman sent bills to an acquaintance in Los Angeles, David Osborne, and asked him to mail them to randomly selected Orlando residents. Osborne found names and addresses in an Orlando telephone book and sent the phony bills from Inglewood, California. He has also pleaded guilty to the charges in the case and awaits sentencing. And lastly, from the Federal Bureau of Prisons Inmate Locator website. Inmate name, Alan B. Silverman, known today as Barry Allen. Inmate register number 06777-039. Inmate release date. After serving sentence time, Mr. Silverman was released on July the 26th, 1986. So that the public can read these materials as written in their entirety, I am making them a public record and will now hand them over to the city clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question? Are people being allowed to come up here with us with cameras and take pictures? This is the first time in 15 years I've seen it. If they can do that, I'd like to know how many more video cameras. Everybody wants to walk up here.
I think that was the press.
Huh?
I think that was the press.
And actually, people are allowed to videotape us from the audience and take pictures.
From the audience, but coming up here, is that
We've
new?
allowed the press to do that. In fact, they were up here tonight when we were with the Korean
I didn't know
American.
who he was. He just comes up here.
We'll ensure that they have the appropriate credentials, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bill Weisman, followed by Sharon Weisman, and that's my last card. Rita, can you start his time over?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Friedman, City Council members, City staff, and the public, and welcome to our new City Manager, Mr. Ochoa. My name is Bill Weisman from far north Glendale, California. A couple of anniversaries, actually, for me tonight. One of them is it's my 31st wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary, honey. We had a nice anniversary dinner last night at Damon's because we wanted to make sure that we were here tonight. Some of you may remember almost exactly 1 year ago, I stood at this podium and I accused Barry Allen of being either a felon or a liar based on the alleged text message intercepts that he had been publishing in Vanguardians. Little did I know that those two things were not mutually exclusive. I have to say the biggest travesty about this whole affair is the fact that this has to be brought to the attention of the public by ordinary citizens and not by the Glendale News Press or other media that have absolutely shirked their responsibility to cover this. In fact, the news press has a cozy relationship with Mr. Allen, and their reporters talk to him on a regular basis, and I hope that that is going to end now. It has always seemed to me that Barry Allen makes his living from Vanguardians, that money that's donated to them is what puts gas in his car and food on his table. I think he needs to be constantly stirring up scandal and controversy to keep a steady level of donations flowing into Vanguardians. I believe it's my opinion, he uses the Vanguard Weekly, at least in part, for carrying out his own personal vendettas, smear campaigns, innuendo, and character assassination. I know for a fact that many of the articles published in Vanguard Weekly purporting to be factual are actually fictional, as are many, if not most, of their letters to the editor. If it's true that Barry Allen is a convicted felon, I think that disqualifies him from credibly criticizing the ethics and morals of others. I don't believe that Barry changed his name from Alan Silverman because of a focus group. I believe he did it to conceal his criminal record. It seems to me that Barry Allen has employed the use of multiple aliases for decades as part of a deliberate strategy for the purpose of deception. And I'm curious of other things that convicted felons, are not allowed to do, like voting or owning firearms or possibly being the active director of a public company. Have these things been investigated? Has Barry Allen ever voted in Glendale? And if so, has he had his rights restored so that he is able to vote as a convicted felon? It occurs to me that any document that Barry has ever submitted to any government agency or any media organization is now suspect. It could be counterfeit. It could be forged. He has a background in doing this. And note that the news stories about his arrests and conviction were not only for printing his own money, but printing his own birth certificate seals and Social Security documents, items whose only purpose is the creation of false identities. It seems to me that Barry Allen is playing fast and loose with the Internal Revenue Code and operating his 501c3. And it is my opinion that he should be audited immediately, if not sooner. Where does the money come from that he gets, and where does it go to? This is something the public deserves to know. And it's also long past time to reduce the inordinate influence that Barry Allen has on the city of Glendale due to his close personal relationships with sitting city council members, sitting planning commissioners, former council members, major Glendale realtors, and reporters from the Glendale News Press. I wonder why so much attention is paid to Barry Allen when he is not even a stakeholder in the city of Glendale, since he doesn't live here, own a business here, or own any property here that we are aware of. It seems to me that Barry Allen's record of filings in Oakland County, Michigan, under multiple similar names, by their nature and volume, show indications of mortgage or real estate fraud, not to mention his federal tax lien, his divorces, his judgments, his levies of execution. I'm not a lawyer, so I didn't know what a levy of execution was. I had to look it up. That's when the sheriff seizes your property pursuant to a court order because of a judgment in a lawsuit. Barry is the active director of a publicly traded corporation, And he's made plenty of other claims that have not been substantiated. And folks, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be more to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sharon Weisman is my last card.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Friedman, council members, and staff. I'm Sharon Weisman from far north Glendale, and I came this evening to thank, actually, all of the council and staff for putting up with all the problems of governing Glendale, especially when so many, Barry Allen, as we've heard from recent speakers, and his cohorts, or maybe we should call them known associates, make it much more difficult than it needs to be here by muddying the waters with a lot of inappropriate complaints about the city and how it's operated. In fact, while I appreciate Herbert Milano, our neighbor from Los Angeles, being concerned about our Glendale Water and Power and how they operate, I want to thank our particularly the electrical side. We had a lot of winds, and in our area, our part of Glendale is only 8 blocks wide up there, and the winds were just as severe in our part as they were in the unincorporated area, which is serviced by a private company, Edison, and yet we had a few flickers when the winds were extremely high, but our lights stayed on, and our neighbors in the unincorporated area serviced by a private company did not get their electricity back for many days later. So I think our public employees should be thanked for their good work, and they don't get enough thanks. And also, Mr. Weaver, I think if the Rose Parade float was a success this year, I'm pleased. I think Glendale was lucky that there wasn't more negative publicity because of the circus elephant theme, particularly in view of the $270,000 fine for violations of the Animal Welfare Act that the owners of Barnum and Bailey Ringling Brothers Circuses had levied against them just a few months ago. So I think we're lucky, and I'm very glad that the City Council is taking a more active role in the coming years and looking at the design. And I hope that although there were plenty of volunteers, I'm glad to hear that. Thank the people that volunteered. I think you might even get more turnout if the float design reflects Glendale more directly and isn't so controversial, is more inclusive of all that. And lastly, what Margaret was trying to say before her time ran out is at the Homeowners Coordinating Council meeting last night, there was discussion that the law allows the water rate increases or changes that are happening here to be challenged if 51% of the ratepayers file an objection. So if anybody's interested in that, try to look up the appropriate authorities. I don't know what they are, but that's just to help Margaret a little bit. And lastly, I wanted to welcome Mr. Ochoa. You might not realize it, but I think you've just got a starring role in the best reality show in Southern California. So welcome, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you. That's my last card. Is there any?
Just the one comment, I believe in a nonprofit, if you take in a revenue of less than $25,000, you do not have to line item it, meaning Mr. Allen has never taken in even $25,000. I try to check it out.
Mr. Najarian?
Let me get this straight. A man by the name of Barry Allen Silverman, Allen Barry Silverman, which you folks claim to be the Barry Allen that comes before us, was caught in Detroit producing counterfeit bills, a family of bills. So I presume it's not just 100, it's maybe, the whole series, 5, 10s, 20s. He may have even been trying to print $3 bills, for all I know. And passing them off throughout the country, and there was a Secret Service investigation. And so what he was doing was, from what I heard, the Florida component was his target, where they wanted to actually spend the bills. So to throw the Secret Service off the track, his cohort in Inglewood mailed phony mailed envelopes with the bogus bills to strangers in the Orlando area, and these folks, unbeknownst to them, would spend it. So all of a sudden, there'd be a huge hit of counterfeit bills rather than just his man in Orlando spending the money. Something like that. And I hope you folks have the right man. I know Barry has some Detroit connections. I always suspected Barry. A few weeks ago, I sarcastically congratulated some of our department heads and a captain of our police force for attending and hosting or being the keynote speaker at one of Barry Allen's forums. I find that to be a huge problem and a huge, at this point forward, a dereliction of the duty of the City Council to permit this to continue. So one thing I'd like to do would have, if necessary, an agenda item which would prohibit department heads and employees on their own time, presumably this meeting is during daylight hours, on city time, prevent them from city time speaking to this group because this counterfeit issue really bothers me. It really bothers me. It's a felony, if I'm not mistaken. I know it's punishable by up to 15 years of prison, if my criminal law serves me correct. And I hear that there was a guilty plea, too. And this is the guy that comes up and criticizes me for being unethical and criticizes former Mr. Starbird for being a crook. I mean, I think it's time for this community just to say enough is enough. And, of course, in that counterfeit rag is highlighted Mr. Milano's ad hominem attacks on myself, the mayor. So obscene, I would expect them to be scrawled, etched into the side of a bathroom wall. I think it's enough. But also what bothers me is he signed the ballot proposition, if I'm not mistaken, on the utility users tax some time ago. So what's going on here? I really want some answers. Is he comes and he uses city airwaves to make a plea for money to our residents. He was accused of defrauding the Thompsons. How was this not brought out? I mean, we as a city council have it upon ourselves a duty to protect our citizens. This individual is a dangerous individual where his intent, basically, when you counterfeit money, you, aside from personal gain, you're jeopardizing the credibility and the stability of the United States currency, which the United States economy is based on. And he's complaining about pensions? I mean, what's going on here? I'd like some answers from the police department. If this is in fact the Barry Allen, I think we need to know that. We need to warn our residents when he comes up and speaks and makes a plea for money and wraps himself in the cloak of a 501c3. The news press is in it with Barry Allen, a counterfeiter. What's going on with that? I mean, if this is just the tip of your iceberg, Mr. Weisman, boy, I'd like to see the whole rest of the show. Because I don't think there isn't one of us with a clear mind up here that didn't suspect Barry Allen and knew he was trouble and knew he was a finagler, and his band of merry thieves with him constantly attacking personally the members of this council and staff. I mean, here it is. Your instincts are right most of the time, they say, and this is really something that is shocking. I'm ashamed that we've had someone like that pleading to the community and claiming, what does he say, transparency? A convicted felon who served time in a federal penitentiary, possibly up to 15 years, is asking for transparency? What's going on, folks? This is the time for Glendale residents to stand up and say, enough is enough. And for those that give him quarter, and I think that's the proper word, to give him quarter. I know he was, looks like the manager of Foxy's has more intuition than many others in this community. But for those that give him quarter and permit him to to fester his ideas and his criticisms, please think twice. For the prominent real estate professional, the commission member, please think twice, because this isn't a game. You've aligned yourself with a dangerous person, a convicted United States felon.
Mr. Manoukian?
I just want to say a few words regarding the attacks on our department heads. The department heads and the captain who came to a hosted event that was hosted by me, not by Mr. Barry Allen, were at my request, and they came and they presented the information that should be presented by the city to all the groups in the city of Glendale. And I've made this plea before to everyone, and that is anyone who wishes for me to host any of their events, I'd be more than happy to. So I do appreciate the department head and the police captain who came out and talked about traffic, talked about rebuilding the streets, talked about the budget to individuals in this community who are residents of this community. I do appreciate their efforts, and they should not be caught in this whatever is going on. This is all a surprise to me, but we should keep them out of this and not into it, because they perform their jobs as they're supposed to in terms of relaying the information to the community and to community members. So I want to thank them for it. Thank you.
Is there support for putting an agenda item as to, I don't know how it would be termed, but exercising some council discretion as to which community groups, or perhaps rather than say who we could meet with, who we cannot meet with, and base it on criminal records and convictions, et cetera?
I was actually just going to ask for the clarification and see if there was a second. Madam Mayor, members of council, one, second, to bring back an item to set standards for staff to go out, or just have a discussion with the city manager on that and the council. We could bring back some sort of agenda item if that's the council's desire.
Because Mr. Manoukian's point is well taken. He's the one who went and asked our department heads to go in and meet with this group. And it puts then the department heads in a very difficult situation, because tomorrow, if Mr. Hagani is asked to go and meet with them, or perhaps Chief DePompa, or perhaps our city manager to meet with this group, I think they would certainly be in a tough situation. So let's take the load off them, and let's leave it here to the, how did we say, the policymakers of this sort of thing. So
at this point, sir, maybe what the best way to go about this, because in the context of this meeting and the discussions regarding what Mr. Allen may or may not be associated with, probably isn't best fitted for tonight. We can go back with the city attorney and myself, put together some background information on the first question that was raised, and then on the latter question about council's direction to us in terms of who we can talk or who we can not make presentations to based on any set of criteria that is lawful, constitutional, and everything else. We can present that to you at a later time as it's on the agenda.
That's my intention, to have it brought back with...
And if I could, just one other, we can go back on the first question, Mr. Najarian, but there may be limitations. You mentioned the police department, for example. There are limitations on what they can use their tools for. This may not fall within that criteria, but to the extent there are publicly accessible documents available, that's all information that's in the public domain and can be referenced.
Well, then I'll call up our public citizens who are unfortunately burdened with the saddled with the burden of bringing the truth out on someone that comes before council. That's fine. There'll be other ways of getting that.
Okay, I just want to make a comment on a different topic. Oh, is there a second from anybody to discuss?
Discuss which groups we want to go out and
well, if we want to have a
groups?
policy for city employees on city time and who they can go and address.
I'm willing to discuss it if we want to sit here and discuss who in the community would choose to make presentations to, which is going to be, I think, an interesting discussion. And I'm very, very actually skeptical about the constitutionality of such a proposal, but I'm willing to discuss it. It's not a problem.
Okay, you have your second.